ain't searching, I remember. I was born with the answer. Through the fire, through the pressure, I emerge with the standard. I don't follow, I awaken. Ain't no man got to I'm the root, I'm the branches. I'm the law and the language. Yeah.
And there you go, guys, and we are back. Welcome back to another round of My Patriot Report Live. I am the bridge connecting the next generation to federal contractor. I am Ratwan Hill. With me, I have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ambassador of Peace. And if you don't know who he is by now, you might want to ask Google Gemini, Mr. Walter Cotton III. Mr. Cotton, how was your weekend, man?
You know, I had a great weekend. Got a chance to, I do date day with the wife on Saturday. And so we did something special. We went over to Asbury Park, New Jersey, and to the boardwalk over there. When I was a very young child, I spent a short stint there in Asbury. So I got a chance to go see some of the old family properties and stuff like that, and just enjoyed a sunny day on the boardwalk in Asbury Park. What about yourself? How was your weekend?
Oh, it was great. It was great, man. I can't complain. It was rainy though, but you know that's been a norm for the past 2 weeks here in Houston. So. Yeah,
you know, the weather pattern has definitely shifted. You know, the Tornado Alley has moved significantly to the right or left. You know, I back in the early 80s lived in Houston. I think I told you that. And I don't remember it raining as much as you guys are getting right now. So there's definitely a slight weather shift going on there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I laugh because I was leaning in conspiracy, but yeah, let's get to the to the important matters here and what is actually real. Right now, we are looking at this Iran situation, and it was a emotional roller coaster, I guess you could say, because it's like, oh, we were close to getting a deal, then it was like no, then it was like yeah, we're close to a deal, then it was like no. So my question is, what are we looking at? Where are we at right now? And the fact that Senate has not come back and did their part on the War Power Resolution Act yet. Where are we at in this situation?
You know, we're at the same place that we were on Friday, with a clearer need for the Senate to engage and put the War Powers Resolution in place so that we can have some level of predictability and dependability as it relates to the things that are going on in the Middle East. And if we didn't have justification for doing that before Vice President J.D. Vance flew to Switzerland, we have it now when the executive branch can't discipline themselves, can't control themselves enough not to disrupt the negotiations while they're in process, right? To send out messages of bombing people back to the smithereens, right, while you're trying to employ diplomacy. This is the reason why Congress needs to quarantine that office. This is the reason why Congress needs to take control of our military and at least get some clear justification for why we're going to take the next action, other than the tweet fart of the executive branch.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What are the exact reasons you think the Senate hasn't engaged? Do you think it's a function of the people just not reaching out, engaging enough in the process that it matters, or is it something different?
Yeah, I think that is the underlying reason the Senate hasn't engaged, because they haven't been touched by enough of their constituents, which is why we're urging the listeners to reach out to your senators and ask them to engage on the the issues that we're requesting. But there's another issue, and that's the fact that the Senate is distracted. It's usurped by the donors that are putting them and keeping them in office. And so, since we changed the, donor laws allowing corporations to participate in elections and actually funding elections, we have situations where mega donors, like Elon Musk in the last presidential election, I think reportedly spent a couple $100 million on a single candidate. Peter Thiel. There are other names out there that have been allowed by this change in our election funding law to provide corporate leverage to the campaign process. And what that means for a politician who has to raise money to defend his or her seat, it's easy when you have a political action committee driving the fundraising for you. And in this season, you have political action committees that have agendas. And so a lot of our congressional members, and specifically our senators, are aligned with political action committees. And those committees have the senators' attention because if they continue to do the bidding of the committee, they don't have to worry about fundraising. And that's where we, the people, lose their attention, because if they don't have to rely on us to get the money to play the influencer game with the local media during the campaign, or the advertisements and barbecues and things like that, then they're not going to give us the kind of respect that we require. And so I said two things there. I said, one, we have an apathetic electorate that's not engaging the Congress effectively. And then two, we have a Congress that's distracted and has become comfortable not relying on the electorate for the things that they need to succeed.
How long was it? How long ago was that approved, the law in regards to corporations being able to participate in the election process? How long ago was that?
I'm not sure when that final law was passed. It was clearly before the Trump administration's last run. We'd have to ask AI, to get that one accurate. But the fact of the matter is, we have an undue ability for corporations to participate in the donation, in the funding of our election campaigns. And that was a law that was passed on the federal level. And we're starting to see some vigilantism. We're starting to see some reaction against that at the state level, because most people don't realize that the election process actually is owned by the states. And so what we saw, I believe it was out of Hawaii, was a state action that bars corporations from participating in elections. And so although the corporations can participate and fund campaigns on federal level, they can't do it on the state level in Hawaii. And if we get every state in the union to follow Hawaii's example, we will rip these political action committees' ability to control our congressmen, to control our senators, and equally control our executive branch. And ultimately, the courts will remove that power from their hands.
And I was going to ask that was the question I was going to ask. I mean, if the 1%ers are the ones who are able to influence politics, the way things go, what kind of position does that put the average Joe, the average American, if we don't have the capital to do it? Is exactly what you said, on that state level, us being able to pretty much get there influence on the
it
state.
puts the average Joe in a position of less control. It puts the average Joe in a position of less of ability to self-determine, right? And they're either trying to hold on to the middle K, right, so that they don't fall out of the middle class down into the underclass and poverty, because the doorway, the ceiling, if you will, to the upper class is getting closed. It's getting closed off.
Yes, sir. And that's a perfect segue for something that we want to redouble and refocus the energy towards. And this was a conversation we started last Friday in regards to the re-entrification. And I was impressed upon by you and reading and being familiar with Dr. Claude Anderson and his Powernomics framework. But after, talking to you, and you were like, you should really read the book. And then once I read that book and I started connecting dots, we saw that Powernomics was a framework to revitalize our community, having our own sovereign economic independency. And it was like, okay, well, if economics is the foundation.
Can I stop you for a second? Because it's important that we qualify this correctly.
Yes,
and I have immense respect for Dr. Claude Anderson and the work, the yeoman job that he did in producing that Powernomics franchise. But we want to be accurate about what we're looking at. And Powernomics is a theoretical principle of how you can revitalize economically challenged urban environments that was never fully embraced. It was never fully adopted. And as a result of that, we've lost economic anchors in urban communities.
And even to that, I remember I asked a couple people from different generations, from an older generation to younger generation, if they were familiar with Dr. Claude Anderson or Powernomics, and all of them said no. So it seems like there's definitely a gap in understanding and how do you support a community? How do you revitalize a community just in general? So maybe that's partly one of the reasons why it hasn't been done yet. Of course, other systemic reasons I would suspect. But
well, actually, if I could, provide some high octane speculation in terms of why it never really fully took hold, and it has everything to do with the competitor that was on the street while Powernomics was trying to take hold. And what I'm really speaking about is the idea of integration, right? The idea of integration was taking hold, and people who were in these urban communities that were being distressed, that were financially upwardly mobile, for the first time in their lifetime, had the opportunity to buy their way out of the hood, right? To buy their way out of the ghetto. And so without knowing what they were going to go to with that purchase, there were, a number of people of color that created a exodus out of the urban centers. So that energy of you could have a picket fence and two kids in a 2-car garage, right, was infecting the minds of upwardly mobile people of color, at the same time that people like Dr. Claude Anderson were out there sounding the alarm that said, if you do that, you are going to put your community in danger. You're going to put your community in jeopardy. And so the reason that it never really took hold was because, the competing interest of the white man's ICE was taking, and for those of you who don't know that, that adage in the Black community, there's this theory that a lot of people believe that the white man's ICE is colder versus the Black man's ICE. So if you had a Black man on one side of the street selling ice and a white man on the other side more people would buy from the man on the other side of the street just because of perception. Just to clear up that colloquialism for you. And so the reason why Dr. Anderson's yeoman's work never took off, I think, was situational. It was environmental. There were a convergence of events that were retarding his system's ability to grow. Fortunately, he wrote a timeless and ageless work that has just as much applicability today as it had the day that he wrote it. Mm-hmm. And we have less distractions in a environment that's being unduly impacted by things like the dismantling of diversity, equity, and inclusion, mm-hmm. and the retarding of voting maps utilizing gerrymandering.
Mm-hmm. 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 Now, when we look at the scenario, right, we got the service disabled veteran on small business. Wide open lane right now in federal contracting because of the dismantling of DEI, service disabled veterans and hub zones, certifications that are not affected, that are not in the crosshairs right now. Then we have things like,
can I stop you there? Because you said service disabled veteran and veterans. I mean, we got to keep those two groups segregated until we get that whole of government contracting program for our veteran community. So right now we have a wide open door. I mean, broad and wide is the way for our service disabled veterans. Mm-hmm. We still need to add our veterans to that population, but I just wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Okay, understood. Well, the service disabled veteran hub zones we have is an open lane for us, and then we look at things like opportunity zone, where those opportunity zones are located in those historically underutilized area. A lot of times they can overlap or be very close to a hub zone area. So either the rural or those urban areas are typically those opportunity zone areas. Then you have a whole bunch of people who made money off of Bitcoin, SpaceX, a bunch of other IPOs that coming up. They have the opportunity to take their money, their return on their investment, and instead of taking that tax hit, they can reinvest it in their community. And say they're the service disabled veterans who can bring the businesses, those new businesses, into that opportunity zone area and revitalize that community. To me, what I'm hearing is it's a pathway to revitalizing the community that doesn't lead with a DEI, but a more efficient and effective way to bring viable businesses and viable opportunities into a area. Am I reading that situation correctly? Am I connecting those dots? We have opportunity to revitalize our community by working together.
Yes is the answer to the question, and it's interesting that you would connect those dots and unpack that in that way, because one of the knocks that I've had on a lot of the economic development strategies that people have espoused for our communities is they always start with the idea that you have the resources or you have the business, and then they say, okay, now you can expand and the like. They never give you a good understanding of how you get started. And so utilizing Dr. Claude Anderson's model, where he suggests that economics are the foundation of revitalizing your community, the how in this situation is what you just articulated. The ability for disabled veterans to utilize their contract capture prowess to acquire material contracts and anchor those in these underserved communities. That opportunity, that pathway exists right now in spades. And fortunately for the disabled veterans, there is settled law that guarantees them, utilizing language like shall, that they can compel the award of contracts to them.
Okay, so the question that popped in my mind was that, okay, for the veterans that's listening right now, or the investors that are listening right now, I'm gonna focus on the veterans. Why would I domicile a contract inside of a community that I came from? Is it an incentive for them putting that contract there, or is it just a passion of wanting to help? What was the what's the reason why they would want to do that?
Because it makes more dollars and cents, right? That's the bottom line. It makes more dollars and cents, and you're doing good while you're earning money.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this particular example, right, if you have the ability to take a $20 million contract, right, that's going to, employ 30 people. Let's use that as an example. And you've got to find a place to domicile that. Well, if you can domicile that place, that contract, if you will, in a place where the rents are cheapest, right? You have the support of the local community because they want you there, right? You got tax incentives for your business. You've got, tax credits for your employees. You have an environment that is more inducive. It's more supportive of your existence. And so in that particular instance, if you take a contract that's a $20 million contract and you drop it in that urban center that you came from, right? What you're doing is creating not just those 20 or so jobs that you're bringing in there. You're also creating the support jobs that are going to be needed to support the activity of that enterprise, whether it's the gas stations, the restaurants and lunch counters, the dry cleaners. And if you can be strategic enough to be a part of a community of practice, and you can get multiple businesses like that, now you've got a economic corridor, you got an economic cluster. And that type of a revitalization effort builds on itself, right? People move to where opportunity presents itself. So what you're describing, I believe, properly positioned, it could be the catalyst for creating the next Rosewood. It could be the catalyst for creating the next economically vital environment that's owned and operated by disabled veterans.
Now, from the investor standpoint, why would the investor want to invest in federal in contracting in service disabled veterans having businesses in that area? What makes it attractive to the investor?
Well, you actually named it when you talked about the Opportunity Zone program, right? And all other things being equal, the ability to supplant a business in a opportunity zone that is also overlaid by a hub zone, it allows the investors to invest in those businesses that will grow tax-free for the duration of that business. The other thing that it does for those investors that have a tax consequence that comes from capital gains is it allows them to eliminate the capital gains associated with accessing their asset and putting it back into service for them. And so to say that another way, if you are an individual that, made a bunch of capital gains because you were a part of your company's public offering, or you bought Bitcoin and it exploded and you can't really get at it because you got to pay the capital gains tax on it to get at your money, you can take a strategy of taking those resources and investing them in a service disabled veteran business that's vitalizing a community like that, and be guaranteed a customer, because the federal government is the largest single customer in North America. So you have predictable growth, you have predictable profitability, and you are doing good because you're helping underserved communities. And in many instances, if you wear the social uniform I wear, you're helping people from the communities that you came from. And one of the unintended consequences of that is you'll be helping your own family.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Now, I do got to ask this question because we've been seeing the opposite, which is gentrification. So how do we prevent re-entrification from becoming gentrification? Because I'm quite sure that those opportunities will be
Well, what I want to just make sure that we're clear on this, because we're utilizing this term re-entrification because we always have to find a unique way to differentiate what we do, which is the same thing as what they did, right? And so we're talking about going into our communities and revitalizing those communities with our own dollars, right? So we're calling it re-entrification, but basically we're talking about people who come from communities that have been distressed, right? Finding the right-minded consideration to take advantage of that depressed real estate, the same thing that the other man does, and utilize that investment to create generational wealth for yourself and your family while doing good for the communities that you came from. Simple.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, can a community build wealth and still remain vulnerable if it don't control the land, the policy, the contracts, and the institutions? Like, if we bring all these job opportunities, and from my research that they had thriving communities, but because they didn't have that political lever, that they were vulnerable to attacks to where they became obsolete.
Well, I mean, are you talking about like what happened to the Tulsa Black Wall Street, or what happened to the Rosewood community in Florida, or the community in Georgia where you mentioned Lake Lanier? That was a different season. That was a different time, right? Those communities had created an outsized economic value that threatened the other communities. And we were in a season that was a lot more barbaric. And so the other communities turned a blind eye as the majority communities went in and destroyed those economic foundations. We've matured beyond that point today. It's a different environment. People have the ability to defend themselves and their property in a way that those communities didn't have. And so I don't think that we have to worry about the outright theft of value and wealth that took place in those days in this particular season. But we do have to be cunning enough to make sure that we insulate the wealth that we secure, right? Yes. Because you can't create the kind of momentum generating value that I'm talking about and not get the attention of people that are outside of your community, right? Right. And so there is going to be money that's going to follow opportunity, and if the people who own property in those communities, or they own family in those communities, they don't get in and outbid the competitor, we're going to lose momentum to the capitalist. We have a capitalist society that we live in, right? So we're going to lose to the natural mechanism of capitalism. But hell, I would rather run in that race without my shoelaces tied together. I'd rather start that race right now, right, and run that race against our competitors, because I think that we have the wherewithal to get out of the mustard and catch up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, while we're getting down to the last 30 seconds, I did want to ask about this Take Care America's Veterans Act.
Well, I think that we can pick that one up in the next sections because I wouldn't want to give that just a minute of time. But what I would want to give a minute of time is the call to action for our viewers to engage. Right. We need the viewers to understand that this isn't a passive activity here. Right. This is an interactive sport that we have going on, and we need you to engage. And so if you reach out to your congressman, you reach out to your senator and get them to sponsor the contract with our veteran bill, we have an asset that we'd like to share with you. We have a gift that we'd like to give you. But the truth of the matter is, if we don't get engaged and we don't do something different, we're going to continue to get the stuff that we've been getting. And so right now, we're not asking you for any money. We're not asking you to donate your time, right? All we're asking you to do is something very, very simple. And that is to follow that URL that you see moving across the bottom of the screen. Go out to that website, interface with the democracy portal that we have, find your congressman and your senator and send them a message asking them to sponsor the Contract Our Veterans Act. Ask them to pass the War Powers resolution in the Senate that they've already approved in the House. If we get that kind of action and you let Mr. Hill know that you were the one that motivated that outcome from your congressman or your senator, we have a $10,000 a gift that's valued at a minimum of $10,000 that we'd like to put in your hands. And so Mr. Hill's email address is going to be moving across the screen so that you can reach out to him. But that's what I would like to end this one on, Mr. Hill, is a call to action, because if we don't get engaged, we're going to continue to leave ourselves vulnerable. And if the president had fulfilled against the promises that he tweeted out this weekend, we would already be in a hurt locker because people haven't already engaged. Let's not leave this to chance any longer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So on that note, guys, I'm Ratwan Hill, and that is the Mr. Walter Cotton III. We'll catch you guys same place, same time.
When I walk in, every ancestor move. Every cell in my body got an ancient groove. I ain't searching for truth, I embody the proof. You look at me, you see the lineage. Every obstacle shift when I rise in.